We might need the time to talk about this really important subject, especially to rural Pennsylvania. So I want to thank everybody for coming. And Senator Hutchinson.
I too will be very brief. I want to thank everyone who came today. I think we do have an important message to get out, to talk about the very, very positive things about the impact fee as it is currently in law, and so I'm just pleased that everyone has come to Harrisburg today to begin to make that case as we start this budget deliberation. So thank you, Chairman Yaw. It's a pleasure to have this joint hearing today.
The first panel that we have is county government, and it's Eric Coolidge, the Vice Chairman of the Tioga County Board of Commissioners, and a person that I've known for many, many years. And from Alan Hall, the Chairman of the Board of Susquehanna County, Charles Morris, the Greene County Board of Commissioners, Dennis Stuckey, Lancaster County Board of Commissioners, and Kurt Hausman, who's the Director of the Lycoming County Planning and Community Development Department. So, gentlemen, whoever, if you drew straws or whatever to go first, or Eric.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the leadership that you're providing, Chairman Yaw and Chairman Hutchinson, Utachak, and Teplitz. I respectfully acknowledge that I'm grateful for the continued conversation. I have a testimony that was of January 26, 2011, in front of the Senate Policy Committee that I was privileged to be a part of. But our conversation actually began back in 06, 08, 09 in our communities when the drilling first happened, and appreciating some of the challenges and some of the changes that were occurring in our communities where the activity has taken place. It's been my privilege to be a part of the Executive Committee of the County Commissioners Association since 1997. I'm a veteran of 20 years as the County Commissioners Association and past state president. I don't offer that to talk about myself, but I offer it in terms of the exposure and appreciation for the decisions and the positions the county commissioners take in terms of putting forth priorities. In our recent meeting in Hershey in November, we set forth 10 priorities, and of course we concentrated on the top 3. The impact fee, or Act 13, was second only to the 911 funding, and that's a voice of 67 counties. So I begin by saying the impact fee, or Act 13, is a distributed amount of dollars that connects to all 67 counties. And our purpose here today is to appreciate and maybe to express more accurately or accountably those dollars that are invested. They're not spent, they're invested. And the accountability, and to the architects of the Act 13, hats off, because it's a piece of legislation that included not only guidelines, but an expectation of accountability of those dollars as they were invested. And let me at this time share some aspects of what we've done in Tioga County. We look at it in terms of what can we do that will add value and bring long-term effect and rewards to the community and to the citizenry. We've added additional cameras at our prison, at our courthouse, GPS on our vehicles for the personnel and the human service side when they're out in the field. We don't have the kind of connectivity with radio systems in every valley and every hill in our county, so protection for our personnel through a GPS is important so we know their whereabouts. We put security on our human services department. With all the challenges that are going on across the country, we want to make sure our personnel are cared for and safe. We converted the ability to dispense jet fuel at our regional rural airport. That is in the benefit of emergency personnel, aircraft, as well as military. Most recently, we had several Kiowa helicopters land and fuel at our airport. Tioga County recently constructed, and we hope to move in the 1st of April, a 911 system. It's been in the basement of our courthouse since I was elected, and we've moved it to an area, converted a building we own, and the Act 13 money will completely fund that, as well as in addition to the prison. Tioga County calls for both Tioga and Potter counties a land mass the equivalent of the state of Delaware. It's significant in that it calls for an amount of area of that mass, and the ability to do so has been enhanced by the technology we've incorporated in this new system. As we all know, volunteerism is an extremely important part of rural communities. We've combined with our fire departments to purchase a piece of equipment. It's a new piece of apparatus. The COG in our area come to us and ask if we would offer financial support for, it's called an eductor, an apparatus that when you connect to it, you throw it in a pond of water, a body of water, and you have water instantly. We distributed them on a Friday. Saturday morning, the call went out and it was put into effect, and it was with the ability to address the issues that they're called to do, those volunteers that act on our behalf. We've invested in scholarships, $50,000 to Mansfield University. Students could apply for and must attain a certain grade equivalent to attain that scholarship in the emergency first responders education. We also did the same thing at Penn College in the area of training for hands-on training for personnel to join the industry. Whether it's a 2-year or a 4-year program, those dollars are equivalent to scholarships as well as Mansfield. Students must attain a certain grade equivalent to be a part of that. But it's about veterans as well. Our Veterans Affairs Director asked us to make it available, and we gave that revenue with that in mind. There's another aspect that just started, and I'll hold up here, Act 120. We all know that policing in our rural settings is a very important part of who we are in terms of safety of our personnel, safety in our communities. We almost lost that program. Tioga County will make a significant donation to give a foundation for that training to be available to the northern tier and the southern tier in New York. We found that to be incredibly valuable aspect when we thought we were going to lose it. State police, rural communities, and policing forces approached the university as well as ourselves. We will make that contribution, and it will be a benefit going forward. A short line rail was preserved a number of years ago by the community. It has turned out to be a major part of the distribution of water and sand in our community, which contributes to the success of the oil and gas industry. And it was about that same principle that we invested the instrument controlled apparatus at the airport and the jet fuel, that we saw that as another venue, another porthole of access to our rural communities would be available. It's an investment in the future, as the leaders in our community did with the short line rail, which proved to be extremely valuable. And finally, we're going to create a security system more appropriate to a single point of entrance at our courthouse. Restore the HVAC electrical wiring that's outdated and doesn't meet code. We'll restore and preserve a jail for historic purposes. It's on the historic registry. All of this is done by virtue of availability of revenues collected from product drawn from beneath the rural community that we reside in, Tioga County, and for the preservation of our community, none of which would be available were it not for these revenues. Some of the projects needed to be done but could not be done. Our expenditure or investment, if you will, is recorded on our website, every dollar. Again, I'll repeat myself to the architects who designed and created Act 13. You had in mind guidelines and accountability. That's a piece of legislation that says volumes about the people and the language that you instilled within that legislation. I'll conclude. Act 13 is a well-crafted piece of legislation. It is working, and it needs to stay. Thank you for the privilege to be here before you. Thank you for your leadership and keeping this conversation alive.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
Yes, thank you. Senator and Chairman Yaw, Senator and Chairman Hutchinson, and members of your committees. I am Alan Hall, Chairman of the Susquehanna County Commissioners. As you may be aware, Susquehanna County is the extreme northern county in Pennsylvania on Interstate Highway I-81, bordering upstate New York. Also bordering those communities in New York that wish to become part of Pennsylvania right now. The passage of Act 13 legislation has had a huge impact on the Susquehanna County. It has allowed our communities and county the ability to address some of the impacts that have occurred due to the natural gas activity in the county. The positives from the industry include, but are not limited to, a new hospital in Susquehanna County due to the support from the gas companies. Unemployment rates at an all-time low of fewer than 5%. Companies have contributed to local college and have played a role in the expansion of that college. They have also provided many contributions to several schools throughout the communities when funding was limited from the state. With the increase in the need for rentals, the industry has forced much-needed housing projects throughout the county. Municipalities and county have used funds to improve bridges, sewer systems, roads, parks, and equipment, to name a few. It has also allowed the entities the ability to free up other revenue streams to improve facilities, reduce debt, and prepare our communities for the future. Susquehanna County is one of those few counties in the state where we have zero debt. Our pension fund is 100% funded. The county is also going through the growth of infrastructure in the communities. The distribution system of natural gas has begun in our communities, giving homeowners and businesses an opportunity for energy savings. The county courthouse and office building is being converted to natural gas to provide heat. The courthouse was heated with a 110-year-old coal boiler, and the oil-fired boiler is the size of a medium-sized package truck. The coal boiler, we had to physically shovel coal in it twice a day. These changes are providing an energy-efficient, clean and healthier environment to the employees and the cost savings to the taxpayers. This is all possible because of Act 13 funding. The county has also passed tax reductions onto the taxpayers of the county. In the last 4 years, we've given back $4 million to the taxpayers to help our local taxpayers. Without the impact fees, the counties, municipalities, and townships would be in serious trouble. The municipalities and townships have to maintain their roads, and a large amount of these roads are dirt and very small paved roads. With all the increased truck traffic, it was forced many to hire additional manpower as well as purchase equipment to repair the roads. A new grader for the townships can cost in the upwards of $400,000, combined with trucks costing close to $100,000. Our roads are very unique due to the heavy traffic and heavy loads combined with the extreme weather. Currently, we have reports from the water companies that the ground is frozen between 4 to 6 feet deep in our communities, damaging many water lines at this time. We also have had the impacts of noise, air quality, and some water issues. Interstate 81 was resurfaced last year and now has sections that are the worst in the state because of the weather and the traffic. Due to the low population, the funding from the state for Susquehanna County for roads and bridges repairs does not cover the needs. In addition, we need to be aware of all the other tax revenues this has been created with this industry. The fuel tax received from the hundreds of gallons of fuel for each of the hundreds of trucks operating daily, or thousands daily across the state. The sales tax from the goods purchased from the industry directly and from the royalties from the landowners. The employment taxes from all the employees working directly and indirectly in the industry. Are you willing to risk the loss of all this revenue over a change in the tax structure? Also, how are you going to protect the property owners from the gas companies passing this tax on to them? Don't interpret this that I'm against funding our schools. I was a school board director for close to 15 years and board president for 11 years. Our schools do need adequate funding to provide quality education. However, the pension crisis, and again, the pension crisis, has created a high financial distress on the school's operating budget. Resolving that would eliminate the high contribution rates the schools are paying, which in turn would free up operating revenue for those schools. Whatever decision you move forward, let's make sure that there is a plan which reviews all the impacts of the decision, short-term and long-term. Again, the passage of Act 13, there was a lot of thought behind that passage. All of you did an excellent job ensuring what was going to happen in the future. Unfortunately, what's trying to be forced through today from the other side, there's no plan in place. It's just let's put another tax in and we'll worry about what we're going to do with it later. The loss of Act 13 funding would mean deteriorating conditions throughout the county with roads, bridges, infrastructure, lost jobs, large tax increases throughout. Dealing with all the impacts without the funding would cripple our communities at this point. I thank you for the privilege to provide this testimony to you today, and again, I thank you for the Act 13.
Thank you, Commissioner. The next is Mr. Charles Morris, the Chairman of the Greene County Board of Commissioners. Sir?
Things that needed done that we could not have otherwise afforded to do. Most significantly, in the first impact, we as a county, as opposed to the townships, I think the townships first noticed their roads falling apart. We first noticed as a county homeless people. That had never been a problem in Greene County, but we suddenly had a rash of out-of-state drillers, as I'm sure these other chairmen can attest. There were times when you would swear that you were living in Louisiana and or Texas or both, or right on the border. The problem that created for us, and that we're making some great strides to address, is one of the gas companies rented Microtel. I mean, they rented Microtel. My sister couldn't stay in Microtel. And they gobbled up, in a sense, the apartments that were available. We have Waynesburg University is located, and it became very, very difficult for Waynesburg University students to rent apartments. A dear friend of mine who rents apartments found that he could now charge $1,000 instead of $500. He liked to make money, and that's what he did. Very, very difficult for the students, but even more so than they was the lower income folks in our town, people that for whatever the reason the world had not treated well. We had people living in cars, and we don't, not the numbers that perhaps they might have in Philadelphia or larger counties. You got to understand our numbers are smaller, but it was quite the issue to have to deal with. What we've done is, or tried to do, is we had a redevelopment authority that for all intents and purposes was dormant. It did nothing because it didn't have the funding to do. We're now taking property that has been abandoned, has been off the tax rolls. We've rehabbed 3 houses, and again, it sounds like a modest number, but that's a really good first step for us. We've rehabbed them. We've sold them at reasonable prices. They're back on the tax rolls, and they're good places for people to live. We've built, refurbished a rather old building. No one's quite sure what it was originally, but an office building or just a huge house. But we now have 6 apartments of transitional housing where folks can reside for, I think it's a 6-month period is the time frame. And we've also started a program through Human Services, because another issue we had were homeless people that had dire need of housing. Our housing authority would give them vouchers, but they didn't satisfy HUD 1, or HUD 8, or whatever number HUD attaches to it. And so as a result, they couldn't be used. So we've worked out arrangements with a number of people in the business of renting homes, renting apartments, that we would split the cost of rehab with them, so long as they agree to rent through our Human Services Department for a minimum period of 3 years. That's just sort of got underway in the last few months, but it's working really rather well. We have done much of the same things that the previous speaker spoke. We have worked on our bridges. An interesting photo I should have brought with me is a rather large water truck, half in the water and half through the bridge. Could not reach a conclusion. A jury, we actually went to trial. The jury gave us $300,000, and it cost close to $700 ultimately to repair it. The judge let them deteriorate the value of a bridge. So we've used it for that purpose. We've used it. We have some rather small water authorities that have 100, 150 people, and the pipes just this time of year, they're just going. And we've given them some funds to repair that. I think, I don't know if it was Eric has spoken, that we now have security in our courthouse. We had none. Okay? And we also now have security in probably in a more volatile place, the building that handles our children's services and our domestic relations office. Okay? So that's much better. We have an old courthouse. It was remodeled 15 years ago, and not very successfully. Is the ceiling? These rafters were bowing in the ceiling. We used $600-some thousand to fix it. It's an historic building. We're proud of it. Oil and gas industry didn't impact that. I mean, it fell apart. It was falling apart because of poor construction. But what the impact fee does, and I'm sure you're aware, it enables us to do those things. If that had not happened, we did not have the funds otherwise to do it. We've also upgraded our 9/11. We've also done parks. We've refurbished a pool. We helped with emergency management. And lastly, because I know I'm probably extending too long, is the Sandusky laws that have all gone into effect have had a heck of an impact on our human services. We've had to hire 3. They wanted more. They've hired 3 to handle, when you redefine who's a mandated reporter, when you redefine what injury is, and you tighten up the time frames, you need additional people. Quite frankly, I don't know what we would have done without the impact fee. 67 counties, I think, could come in here, or at least all those that have some wells, and talk about and extol the virtues of this act. It has been a blessing to Greene County. It's been a godsend to Greene County. There's not much more I can add to that than what the others have said. So thank you for hearing me. Thank you for having this hearing.
Thank you for coming. The next testifier is Dennis Stuckey, the chairman of the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Senator Yaw. Thank you for the opportunity. Senator Hutchinson, Chair, and Minority Chairs Utachak and Templets. Pleasure to be with you this morning. Lancaster County is in south central Pennsylvania. We're not a shale gas county, as you know, so we are the beneficiaries of the funds that have been distributed according to the formula, which we think was a very successful way to distribute funds to local communities. On our funds, the unrestricted funds for open space, we've pretty much focused that all on agriculture preserve. Lancaster County has about 1/7 of the total ag production in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a little over $1 billion. So agriculture is very important to us, and we felt that's where the money should best go. Now, in Lancaster County, most of you know, we have the Plains Sect, the Amish community. They don't particularly like to work with local governments, so we partnered with the Farmland Trust, and former Senator Noah Wenger helped write that law so that we could partner with them. That's been very effective. We're able to go through the Farmland Trust, and we double our money because we put it up as a challenge grant. That allows them to get money from private donors and also private trusts. Very successful program. It keeps us into that community. This year we've taken about $940,000 of the impact fee open space fund that we have, and
committed that to agriculture preserve. We anticipate getting about $450,000 from this impact fee this year. What that will allow us to do, we'll have a surplus. We can also now consider organizations such as the Lancaster County Conservancy, which have a different mission and goal, and that's to preserve other open spaces. So we can consider that in our budget for next year. This has been a very successful program for us. We have the nation-leading agriculture preserve program with over 100,000 acres just in Lancaster County. If you look at our statement and you go to the bridge and the transportation side of Act 13, this has been a very, very important fund flow for us. We have about $2.2 million on hand, and I know there's probably some concern, as I have concerns with programs I've done, of just holding money. But we have 64 bridges in Lancaster County, 20 covered bridges. Fixing bridges is a very, very expensive proposition. You don't just go out and do a $100,000 project unless you're just painting. Of those bridges, 44 of them are regular bridges, and they're either concrete or steel. Some of them are historic bridges that we have to maintain. I would call your attention to probably the second page, the third paragraph up. We have $2.2 million. We'll do 3 bridges in 2015 with that $2.2 million. One bridge alone will be $650,000. One bridge will be $1 million, and one bridge will be $550,000. This is a very important flow of funds for Lancaster County with 64 bridges. With the continuation of this money, we can reduce from 33 down to 13 by 2018 the number of structurally deficient bridges, and I know you all addressed that at the state level. Public safety is very important to all of us. This goes to safety of taxpayers, those people that pay our salaries, your salaries, whenever they travel to the jobs and to work or just where they live. It's very important. The bridge funding is important for us, so we appreciate what we do have. Our goal is to maintain the impact fee and not touch the impact fee with any changes that are made. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. The next presenter is Kurt Houseman, the Director of the Lycoming County Planning and Community Development Department. Kurt?
Thank you, Senator Yaw. I believe this is a very important issue, and when Mr. Pancake contacted me from your office and asked me if I would testify, I didn't hesitate for a second, because this issue is so important to the rural counties and the counties that are impacted by the oil and gas industry. And when I say impacted, I don't mean all negatively or all positively, just impacts, because there are impacts from the oil and gas industry. Lycoming County approached this a little bit different, and that may be, we have a very vibrant planning department in Lycoming County, and therefore my department was relied on very heavily by the commissioners in determining how to use the Act 13 funding and what to do with this new funding stream that has come into the county. And we had just completed a comprehensive plan in 2006, just before the industry started to hit our county in 2007. So that plan did not talk about oil and gas drilling, because we didn't know it was coming yet. But what it did do, it told us a couple things. One was that the people in Lycoming County live there because of their quality of life. Not so much for jobs and things, but the quality of life is why they're there and why they come back when they're raising their families if they had to relocate after leaving college. So we know that's very important. The oil and gas industry, we realized early on there's great economic benefit to the county and our municipalities that can be realized. And one of the best examples of that is the revitalization of Williamsport, Pennsylvania. If you've been in Williamsport, Pennsylvania recently, and you had been there before 2007, completely different downtown. New hotels, new restaurants, no more vacant storefronts. There is retail on first floor and residential living, high-end apartments on second and third floor of the buildings. It's just a change, really a changed city. And that in part is due to the oil and gas industry and what has come from it. So what we see in Lycoming County, we need to perform a balancing act. We need to recognize the economic benefits from the industry while at the same time protecting our quality of life. And so that's what we've tried to do. In 2011, we passed an oil and gas amendment to the Lycoming County zoning ordinance. All of our municipalities are zoned in Lycoming County. They either have their own ordinance or they come under the county zoning ordinance. So we adopted this amendment to the county ordinance. We worked with the industry when we were adopting that. We came up with a draft. We sat down with industry representatives and attorneys, and we went through it page by page, line by line. And we looked at what the industry thought wouldn't work or what they thought they couldn't live with or what would be too onerous for them. We looked at the things that were non-negotiable from our department standpoint as far as quality of life issues and regulations we felt had to be there to protect the quality of life. And in the end, we came out with a very good ordinance. And an ordinance that went into effect February 2011, and here we are 4 years later, and it has worked very well for the industry and for the county and for the residents of Lycoming County. So the one thing I would like to point out is that when you're doing things, don't do things in a vacuum. If you're doing things and putting regulations in and things, work with the industry and find out. They made suggestions to us on things that we did not even know we should regulate. And they said, we should regulate this, 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 and this. And we're like, well, we didn't know about that. And they said, oh, well, that should be regulated. And we put regulations in that they told us about that would never have been there if we hadn't have talked to the industry. One of the things in Lycoming County, we have 917 spud Marcellus wells in Lycoming County. And we are not only an epicenter for wells, but we're also an epicenter for regional operations for the gas industry. And that is in large part because of our comp plan of 2006. We identified growth areas within our county, and we were able to put infrastructure in, sewer, water, highway. We have rail and air. We did not know what industry at that time was coming. We actually thought we were going to get a European pancake factory, and it would be a food service was what would be coming when we did this. But what actually came was the gas industry. We were ready, so we got many of their regional headquarters located in Lycoming County, and then they go out to the other place. So that worked very well. Along with good planning, we did 4 studies. And the first one was housing, second was sewer and water, the third was transportation, and the fourth really wasn't a study because we didn't find any real correlations with the gas industry and the social institutions. We just had some anecdotal information. So that one we have not published yet or anything. But the first 3 we have published, and all the studies indicated housing was our #1 issue. And I'd like to stress that housing was an issue before the oil and gas industry came to Lycoming County, but the oil and gas industry exacerbated the housing issue. And what happened that you heard from one of the commissioners here today testify was that as the rents went up and the cost of housing went up, the people that suffered were the ones that need affordable housing. The affordable housing was gone. So what we did, we created my department, myself and my deputy, designed a program, a merit-based Act 13 grant program that we implemented in Lycoming County. And on the review committee for the grant applications that come in from our municipalities, we have 2 fiscal staff, myself and my deputy director, so 2 project people and 2 fiscal people. We evaluate all the grant applications that come in and then make recommendations as a committee to the commissioners on what projects ought to be funded and what amount they should be funded for. So this made a very objective program, and the commissioners like it because they were not getting the phone calls personally about, hey, I have a project over here in Useville, can you fund this? And it was like, oh, you need to talk to Kurt Houseman, our planning director. He will get you an application. We have a program and a process in place. And so it worked very well for them. We funded over 20 different organizations, over 15 municipalities. $4.7 million in Act 13 funds were granted, and they leveraged $89.3 million in projects. That for every dollar invested, we saw projects of $18.84, which was really a good return on our investment. And one of the main projects we did was the Williamsport Housing Strategy, which was Memorial Homes, which just finished in December and is now being occupied. It is 40 affordable housing units that is going into place. The Grove Street Center is going to break ground this spring, which is a 32-unit senior center, and we have another project that should break ground in fall called Muncie Green, a 50-unit senior center affordable housing in Muncie Township. And then we have many other projects that we funded also, but I know I'm running short on time to try and go into all of them. But we did fund, I will say, 100 scholarships at Penn College to train gas field workers, and with special preference given to veterans from Lycoming County. We did that. And then lastly, we used our Act 13 Legacy Recreation Fund dollars that came from Act 13, and we gave out 21 mini grants to our municipalities and recreation authorities in the county, and it was $265,000, and it leveraged $752,000 in projects. And one last item that I want to cover is the fair funds. The fair funds go back to PHFA, and that is dollars, overage dollars that come from municipalities that have drilling and revenues of over $500,000, and their budget was not high enough to be able to realize the whole $500,000 in Act 13 funds, so the overage goes back. We have 2 or 3 municipalities that sent back almost $1.5 million the last several years to the Fair Fund. One of the things we did, we met in Harrisburg with PHFA when they were doing the regulations, and we suggested to them, wouldn't it be good if a municipality had a project that meets your guidelines, if they would get first crack at the money that came back from their county? And they thought that was a good idea. So I'm happy to report in the last 3 years, we have been able to recover $4.5 million in fair funds that have helped us do many housing projects in our county. And I just went through a list because, in 5 minutes I can't get through everything. But you have attached to my written testimony, you have our complete list of projects that we've funded. And I think when you look at those lists, you'll see we have really been able to do some good with this money. And I can't impress on you enough how important this Act 13 funding is to the counties and municipalities where the impact of the oil and gas industry is. It's imperative. I think you've heard from everyone here today on the panel the great things that we've all been able to do with the funding. And frankly, it really scares me. If this funding goes away, I don't know how we're going to deal and cope with some of the impacts that we've been able to successfully to date. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to make the comment that the response that we have had in emails and written commentary about this subject coming in is probably greater than anything that I've experienced since I've been here in the Senate. We were receiving them probably even still today, that people want to comment on the very things that all of you have said. I'm not going to ask a lot of questions or anything, but Commissioner Coolidge, the comment that you made is something I'm going to remember, and probably you'll hear it many times again, is that you didn't spend the money, you invested it. I thought that that was a significant comment.
Kind of you to hear it, and that's what it was said for. Respectfully, you can spend money, but the important part is that you thoughtfully consider what you're going to do with that money, and when you make that kind of an effort, you've invested it. Thank you for acknowledging, sir.
You're welcome. Senator Hutchinson. Senator Udicek.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Yaw. Today's not the forum to debate the merits of Act 13 for many reasons, most notably that the author of Act 13 and my good friend sits directly to my right. We're not going to debate Act 13. In all honesty, Senator Scarnati did a tremendous job in trying to thread the needle on a developing industry in Pennsylvania, in dealing with the governor and with the General Assembly. The impact fee, the Act 13 dollars that is driven out to the counties, I think has been, by and large, a success story. And you're all to be commended for the work you've done in your respective counties. The proposal that will be unveiled today by Governor Wolf, my understanding and my conversations with the governor, will hold Act 13 impact fee dollars harmless. It will hold them harmless, that those dollars will continue to be driven out. And so while I listened to Commissioner Hall and the success of Susquehanna County, incredible success story, that while state funding for our schools declined, you stepped up to the plate not only for your school districts, but also your homeowners. And I think what you're going to see from Governor Wolf today is the Susquehanna County model implemented on a statewide level. More money for our schools and significant reduction in property taxes for our homeowners. So I ask all of you assembled here, if Act 13 dollars are held harmless, continue to be driven out for the impacts. Clearly, you have impacts. And there is an additional severance tax imposed on the natural gas industry that would fund property tax relief, that would fund money for our schools. Why would you be in opposition to that proposal? What is the shortcoming of implementing the Susquehanna County model that has been so successful on a statewide basis so that all schools and all homeowners across Pennsylvania can benefit?
I think we're early in the discussion to appreciate what that may mean to the industry's activity and how aggressive they are in the development. I'm not here to defend the industry or speak on their behalf, but I do recognize something that's incredibly apparent. We have a product that other states would like to have. We have the benefits that have been yielded today and experienced across the Commonwealth, whether you're a county of being drilled upon or not. We're sharing in that reward, and the fact that it exists, the threat or the concern would be, are we putting an over expectation upon a dependency of a product that could vary? I'm a dairy farmer, and 2 months ago we were receiving $26 per hundredweight, $26 per hundredweight. This month it'll be about $16 per hundredweight. 8,000 pound a day, that's 80 hundredths. Do the math. The industry could be reflected in the same principle. The fluctuation, the variables across the country, across the nations, what changes that reliance upon the revenue collected and the dependency upon it. We have the benefit of a product that's making a difference. Jobs, economy, revenue. Respected.
If I could just add to that, I'm not a career politician like some people are. I come from the business world. I've been very successful in all my businesses that I've been a huge part of. This industry is no different than any other industry. We are coming off one of the worst winters in history as far as coldness, 30 degree below wind chill factors in our area, and the price of gas is very low. It didn't go up because of the winter. That's a key element right there that you need to really be looking at. If that price of gas didn't go up because of the needs from this winter, then the price is really getting to the rock bottom. When an industry gets to a point where it's cheaper not to produce because of the cost to produce it, then they stop producing. Now, you look at the severance tax that you talk about. If you look at Texas right now, their Eagle Ford project, they're going to give 50% of the severance tax back. They're going to cut it by 50% to get that industry back drilling again. So the bottom line is, if you put the severance tax in and it works, then you're all heroes. If you put the severance tax in and the industry walks away, which it can easily do because they can't maintain a profit for drilling, not only do you lose the impact fee, you lose the severance tax you wanted, you lose all the employment taxes, you lose all the fuel tax, the billions of dollars you will risk will cripple this state. You already have a huge deficit you can't fix. You already have a huge pension problem that you guys have not addressed in years. You keep running away from. So when you fix those problems, that'll take and cure a lot of the issues with the schools. And just throwing more money at a school will not fix the problem at a school. If it did, look at the schools like Hershey Milton. Why are they so successful versus a regular public school? You really need to analyze what's going on in the schools. Like I said, 15 years on the school board, 11 of those years as board president, I never raised taxes once when it was under my control. And we were successful all the time. So like I said, if you put it in, you're successful, you're heroes. If you put it in, it doesn't work, you're going to cripple the state.
Just one follow-up. And were you a commissioner when they imposed the Act 13
Yes.
impact fee? So that was a tax rate you raised at the county level. That under Act 13, we empowered the counties to impose the tax. It wasn't a tax imposed by the Commonwealth. Do you feel so strongly in that comment? I think the IFO here in Harrisburg indicates that the effective tax rate of the current Act 13 impact fee is about 2.1 to 2.5%. Are you suggesting that in your county that you would do away with the impact fee in its totality because of the industry and because of the price point of natural gas at this point?
No, what I'm saying is when you get to the point where you overtax an industry, they will leave the state. And when they leave the state, you won't have anything. If they shut the wells down and they stop producing, what will you have then?
Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Teplitz.
My question was basically just asked, so instead I'll just make the brief comment that it sounds like there is a concern, a legitimate concern about preserving the funding. And my only comment would be as we move forward that none of us get hung up on what we call it or how it's structured. If the funding is preserved, if that's able to occur within a broader context of a consensus on how to move forward with raising more revenue from the industry, I think that could be a win-win for everyone. I understand that we're talking about the quote-unquote impact fee from Act 13, but it sounds like what's really important to you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is preserving the funding that you've been receiving over the last few years.
I think you structured that very well, and it is about the preservation of the revenues that are being invested in. There's less reliance upon the state for various programs as well, and so there's a win-win as you worded it. The comment that's been made is funding that supports the industry can flow like water. It can flow in, it flowed in, it can flow out as well. It's everybody's involved in this conversation. Thank you.
First of all, Senator Udechak, I apologize for mispronouncing your name earlier. But more to your point, Senator Teplitz, as county commissioner and one who's had to, because they felt it necessary and the right thing to do, raise taxes. And I'd remind you, I only have one form of revenue, and that's personal property tax at the county level, basically. Not fun, not something I wanted to do, but something I felt necessary. Our job here today is to convince you that the impact fee funds are important to us, and we have invested them wisely, to Senator Yall's point, and my good friend Eric Coolidge made that point very well. As far as any increase on the industry, I think you have to look at that very, very carefully. Again, as someone that had to put up a tax increase vote on the local level, I would just ask you, if you feel it's necessary, and if you feel that your taxpayers, the people that elect you, will be happy with your vote, then I would ask you, do the thing you think is the right thing as far as an impact fee or an additional tax. I'm glad to hear that perhaps the impact fee, in whatever form, and we hope it stays in the same form that it is, will be held harmless. We're very pleased to hear that, but it's your job now to make sure that happens through the next several weeks as the budget's discussed. So I would just say, whatever your decision is, make sure it's the right decision in your mind, as my decision was to raise taxes locally. Thank you.
If I could just add two comments. As Act 13 is now, there's two very important elements to it. One is the 13 items that you can use Act 13 funding for. They were a very encompassing list that was very valuable to counties and municipalities on what they could use the money for. And the second thing, probably one of the most important things, is the Act 13 money is not considered state money. It is considered local money. So when a county or a municipality goes for state or federal grants, they can use that money as local match. And that's very important, because that really gives you the ability to leverage something and complete some major projects with this money.
Okay, thank you. Next, you've already heard a reference to this, as Senator Scarnati happened to be one of the primary architects of Act 13. So, Senator Scarnati.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for conducting the hearing with the local government committee. And I know all you gentlemen are busy individuals, and thanks for taking the time to come here on another blustery, wintry day on its way. Some years ago I spent time with County Commissioner Eric Coolidge in Tioga County, and we talked about the debate that was going on in Harrisburg. The debate was with Governor Rendell, and were we going to put a tax on this industry? What were we going to do? And as the debate moved forward, I asked the commissioner, I said, you need to quantify what your impacts are. Tell us. And we began this conversation with the intent and a novel idea of actually returning money back to the areas where drilling and the extraction was taking place. What a great idea. We've seen it in the landfill industry. We've seen it in the casino industry. This isn't anything new once we began this conversation. And as we look at where we're at today with an industry that's poised to take the next level, to take the next step up, cracker plants, liquefied natural gas being shipped, CNG, the opportunities of jobs are endless. They're endless. Why would we want to risk killing this golden goose? Why would we want to risk that? We have the highest environmental standards in place. We're protecting the environment. That's not a question here. We're creating jobs. We're bringing tax revenue to the Commonwealth. And let's not kid ourselves. We call it a fee because we had a governor that refused to call it a tax. It's a tax. Okay? Let's get that on the record for everybody. It is a tax, and they're paying a tax. And I'd like to ask if anybody here, any of these county commissioners or commission members, when was the last time you had an auto plant or IBM or Google looking to locate in your counties? Do you remember that? I don't remember it either. I represent a lot of that area. And we have done with an industry that came to us, if an industry had come into this state, and I criticized them for this, if they would have come into this state 4 years ago, 6 years ago, and said, we want to create 250,000 jobs and invest billions of dollars in this state, we want to give them tax credits. And people up on this table have been lined up to stand and cut the ribbons for the plants. So, we've got to be careful here. Business people understand that there is the problem when you raise any price or any fee or any tax is diminishing returns. Returns will diminish. And I believe strongly that this industry will pull out of this Commonwealth. And that next level of development isn't going to happen. And then we can all stand around again and say, gee, what happened to Pennsylvania? There's nations around this world that envy Pennsylvania. Envy us. We have food, we have water, and we have energy. We have energy. And we're an exporter of all of them. So, the impact fee tax has been a valuable asset to the region I represent. And not just that region, but the whole Commonwealth. The whole Commonwealth has gained in this. And so let's be careful. I thank you, gentlemen. Sorry for the tirade, but I have to leave and go to some meetings in my office. But thank you all, and certainly appreciate what you're doing in your counties.
Senator McGargle. Yeah. Anybody have a question? Alan? We're good. Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you coming, and your comments were very instructive, and we'll certainly take them into consideration. Thank you. The next panel consists of township supervisors. We have Charles Snow, the president of the Butler County Association of Township Officials, Howard Fry III from the Lycoming County Association of Township Officials, and Elam Herr, the Assistant Executive Director for the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Mr. So, I guess you're up.
Thank you.
Chuck, is that on? If the little green light, please just press the green light has to come on. If you touch the front panel there.
There we go. You want me to start over? You caught it? Okay. Sorry about that. I assumed it was on.
No, we can hear you very well. But it's just
work on low tech at our township meetings. We don't have things like this, so this is all new to me. So, anyways, the 33 townships in Butler County have used the Act 13 impact fees in a number of ways. Some have chipped, paved, resurfaced, and widened their roads. Others have replaced culverts, replaced bridges, and implemented stormwater improvements on their roads. Other townships have updated equipment such as purchasing graders, trucks, a roller, a high lift, a snow plow, and a tractor with a boom mower. Some are planning road improvement and bridge replacement projects. Others are planning to purchase new equipment with their Act 13 monies. One township used their Act 13 money to invest in equipment for their police department. Some of the township has invested in parks by expanding existing ones and creating new ones. Others have donated to their volunteer fire companies and have implemented much-needed stormwater improvement projects. Cranberry Township used their money for road resurfacing and maintenance. If the impact fees were eliminated, they would have to raise taxes to maintain their 132 miles of roads. Butler Township used their money to implement stormwater improvement projects to protect their residents from flooding. Winfield Township used their money to replace a closed bridge. Without the impact money, the bridge would have to be closed for a number of years until the township could save enough money to replace the bridge. Mercer Township used their money to widen and pave the narrow Wick Road, enabling vehicles to meet and pass each other safely. Penn Township used their money to develop a recreational park with hiking and biking trails for their residents to enjoy. My township, Allegheny Township, purchased a much-needed newer model road grader that will provide service to the township for the rest of my lifetime. It was the biggest purchase that we made in the 34 years that I have served as a township supervisor. We have used a new grader twice this winter to plow back snow and widen our roads. Without the Act 13 impact fees, many of the projects and purchases would have not happened, or at least be put on hold until enough funds could be raised. The impact fees have helped our townships hold the line on local taxes, plan for the future, and have expanded services to our residents. Residents have come to the township meetings to voice their concerns about the Marcellus shale gas industry. They were concerned about the increased truck traffic, damage to the roads, extra police hours, extra noise and lights in the night sky during the drilling process, the flaring of the new gas wells, noise from compressor stations, and new pipelines crossing their property. The Marcellus shale gas companies have addressed most of the major concerns of our residents and have worked with our municipalities to help solve the problems. I'm also chairman of the Butler County Conservation District. In 2014, the district received $56,818.18 from Act 13. Our staff has outgrown our current office. We plan to use the money to relocate to a bigger facility. The Act 13 impact fees have been the icing on the cake to help our communities to better serve their residents. They have been a shot in the arm to many of our smaller municipalities. I also submitted a survey showing the amounts of each township received, the number of wells, and how the funds were used. Thank you again for letting me speak to you about some of the projects that have taken place in Butler County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next presenter is Mr. Fry from Lycoming County Association of Township Officials.
Thank you, Senator Yaw and Senator Hutchinson, for the opportunity to come down here today to speak about Act 13 money, what it's done for my little township. If you can picture this, I live 20 miles north of Williamsport, if any of you know where that is, in a little community of 955 people. Guess what? My budget's about $150,000 a year to run the township, plow the snow and buy the fuel, and maintain the buildings. Doesn't go very far. And then the other side of this, between $15 and $25 per person comes to my township. That's all they pay for tax. I can't even buy fuel for my equipment with that for the year. Understand what Act 13 has done for us. We've had 60 wells in my township. And believe me, it did help us tremendously. I invested in a new playground. The insurance company had us take out, it was 30 years old. Not able to buy replacement parts. Insurance company said you must remove the equipment. I was down to a swing set. We are the only playground in 25 miles for people to come to. 13 money restored that. I invested the money into that playground. I have people there every day in the summer. I don't know where they came from, but it was a community project. Everybody pitched together, got petitions signed. We spent the money. I don't regret that. I invested in a cinder shed. Now, to you people, it probably thinks, well, big deal, cinder shed. Well, when it's 0 outside and it's 2 foot of frozen cinders on top, and you go out there with your machine and try and dig it loose and put all the lumps in the truck, and you're out there, snow's blowing down your neck, digging lumps out of your truck, 2 o'clock in the morning, not fun. We put a shed up. That problem went away. I put salt shed up last year, because of all the paved roads that the gas company provided. I had to go to salt, which is fine. But my point is here today, Act 13 money allowed me to invest in my township. I've been on the board for 10 years as chairman. I upgraded the windows, with all new energy saving lights. I'm ready to put in a new furnace. So I'm doing what I can do with our Act 13 money, which is so important to a small township. Remember this, the gas companies, we are their first defense when they come to see us. We are the first ones they see when they want to bond the road. And when they bonded the road, we didn't know what they were up to. We knew there'd be some trucks coming. Inside of a week, there was a foot deep in mud. They hook a dozer to the trucks, drag them in, drag them out. No resident can get through there. So now what do? When you bond the road, you're supposed to put it back to what it originally was, or better. Do I need to tell you, and you won't believe this, you'll call me a liar right straight out. The gas company went above and beyond the call of duty, and this is where this leads to this severance tax. They went above, they spent $10 million in Coken House Township, and that's not a state road. I have 36 miles of road, and every road they came on, they made it better than it was, and it will last me through the rest of my life. They spent $5 million on the state road. Harrisburg doesn't even know that. It's these kind of things that the gas company does that no one knows about. This is the reason why Act 13 must stay in place to help us out. We're slowly but surely coming ahead. I bought a new backhoe. I bought a new truck. Have you priced one of them lately? $200,000 for a dump truck. Crazy. Not my fault, but that's what it is. I wasn't able to do that. I have 25-year-old machinery. I got a 35-year-old building that had any updates done to it. I'm so appreciative. I'm able to invest that money and know that we've done something with our Act 13 money to show what we've done. The wells in the township are starting to show a decline, and I can prove it. I have my own fire extinguisher business in Williamsport. It's my 25th year in business. I made the grade, and I'm so appreciative of that. But right here's a copy from Halliburton wanting us and all vendors to reduce our cost to them by 15 or more %. This is a copy you can have to read. If you don't believe me, start looking around. I've got 2 more from 2 other gas companies in my office. What does that tell you? It tells you the gas company is starting to take a look because of the low gas price and nowhere to go with it. If the severance tax happens, these boys are going to set on it. Your revenues are not going to be what you project. It's not going to happen. And I can tell you, I'm in a block of 640 acre. I haven't received a royalty check in 2 months. What does that tell you? It tells you that the wells are down. There's no market. They're not going anywhere. They're going to set on them. The next problem we have, and to prove my point, we have an email in our township. The gas companies, Range and Anadarko, have taken 5 roads off of their bond list and want their bonds back. They're abandoning of the road, and there's well pads on every one of them. So what does that tell you? That tells you there's no truck traffic anticipated. That scares me. I will tell you, it's proof. I see it because I'm the first one they come to. So with that being said, please understand, you must look at this severance tax and even the cubic foot tax per so many thousand cubic feet. Take a look. And you know what this term is. Cut a fat hog in the rear end, it could happen. And if it does, the gas companies will go to West Virginia and Ohio. They will settle it because the market isn't here. No infrastructure to give us gas. I can't get gas. There's gas line running right through my property and I can't get it. Doesn't do me any good at all. So with that being said, please understand that we know in my community what the first line is, and we see the decline already starting. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you.
Thank you, Mr. Herr. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I am Elam Herr. I'm Assistant Executive Director for the Township Supervisors Association. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I wish Senator Scarnati wouldn't have left because I'd just like to compliment him for his foresight when he realized back when we were in the negotiations the benefits of what an impact fee could do for this Commonwealth, not only to my members who are directly affected, but the rest of the state. My members have directly benefit from Act 13, and you have received my written comments, and I hope you've had the chance to read them. If you'd not, I'd appreciate if you did in the future. And you have heard from earlier the county commissioners who testified on the benefits of 13 for the counties, and you just heard to the 2 gentlemen to my left of how it affected their areas of the state. What I would like to do is take my time now and just talk about a statewide perspective instead of going into individual. If you want an individual listing of the townships and the benefits, we would be here way after the governor's presentation this afternoon. First, I want to state, and I think this follows up with what Commissioner Coolidge said, is that our members, the township officials, are being fiscally conservative with this money. They're not just spending it, they are investing it. They are looking at the future. Mr. Fry just explained what he was doing with the money in his township, and it shows greatly. They're making well thought out plans with the money that is coming in each year. And again, Mr. Fry just mentioned this, they understand that the money is not guaranteed. They comprehend what the Act says as it relates to how the funding is calculated and how it is distributed. So money today could stop tomorrow, and not just by taking it away, the impact fee, but just because of the glut in the amount of gas that's out there, they can cap wells. And if the wells are capped, money coming back to counties and municipalities does change. Also realize that the way the law is written, funding that a municipality receives in any year is for the preceding year. And is reported the following year. So the 2011 money was received in 2012 and was reported in 2013. Again, 2012 money received 13 and reported in 14. So the 14 money will be received this July in 15 and reported in 16. So when it is, from the time it is gotten by the municipality till they go through their budgeting process, a lot of times it's not spent to the following year. And one of the good things about the way the law is written is the capital reserve fund that's there. So the municipality can actually put it aside and actually think about how they're going to use that funding instead of just going out and spending it as we were told during the negotiation process. They'll get the money and spend it like drunken sailors. I'd have to say they haven't. They have really thought this through. So just to give you a couple statistics to consider, the 2011 money, capital reserve, 62%
statewide for municipalities went into the capital reserve fund. 26% went to roads and infrastructure, and emergency preparedness and public safety was 8%. That's 96% of the money. Now, as I said, it's reported the following year. When it is reported, when it's reported, it's a snapshot. It isn't continuous, so you can see what's happening. So the money that was put into reserve that year, it's not just sitting there. It's being held for future expenditures. In 2012, roads, public infrastructure was 47% of the expenditures. Capital reserves, 36%. Again, emergency preparedness and public safety, 94%. Those are basically the latest statistics that we have. So, what am I getting at? Basically, what PSATs, our association, had done from the very beginning, and what we said to the negotiators when we're working on it, if the money can go into capital reserve, use it for capital improvements down the line. Because again, you're never sure how much money's coming in. The capital improvements will last for a long time. It's not get it today, spend it today, and then worry tomorrow. The majority of townships are following this advice. Also, when you put the money into capital reserve, what you're doing there is thinking about saving for major projects. You heard earlier our county commissioner say about the cost of bridges. I have one township that has one road, 1 mile of road, has 7 bridges on it. There is no way their budget, which is only about $500,000, could repair that road in any one budget season. So what they're doing, they're putting the money back. Yes, they're getting more impact fee money than what their budget is. And if you just look at it from a snapshot view, you'd say, why are they hoarding all this money? Well, the reason they're doing it is so when they do the project, they have the money to do it. They don't have to borrow. They don't have to raise taxes. So basically, what I'm showing with those statistics and that is that the townships are doing what the act intended them to do. And that was to use that money to benefit the communities, those that were most impacted by the development of this resource. And finally, I would be remiss if I did not state that PSATs, based on the resolutions passed by our membership, which is those members that include townships within the drilling footprint and those outside, opposes any legislation that will reduce the allocation or the amount of funds distributed or otherwise made available to municipalities pursuant to Act 13. We also wanted to be clear that as the industry grows, and hopefully in time it will grow again, and the additional impacts are felt by those communities where the drilling is taking place, that their impact fee revenues will grow proportionally as is presently provided. What I am saying here, gentlemen and ladies, is that you cannot cap or even consider capping the amount that is being paid today under the impact fee. Because Mr. Fry said you had 60 wells? 60 wells. And he gets X amount of dollars. Next year he could have 70 wells. His impact fee should grow as the impacts on his community also grow. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, the three of us will answer any questions you have. And as always, if you have additional questions, you know that I'm around. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. One of the comments that I'd like to make, we've been talking about the impact fee. I've been very privileged to have had the opportunity to speak with delegations from numerous foreign countries. And one of the things, the first thing that they ask about is how, what Pennsylvania has done, environmentally. They talk about that, but one of the most important factors is how we distribute the money. And I haven't followed up on this, but one of the delegations I met with was a delegation from Romania. They were in the process of writing a law, and they were using our impact fee as a guide. Because the most important thing that they thought was, how do you get money to the local people? And, that's the one unique factor of the impact fee law or Act 13 that it seems to impress everybody, and it is really unique, and apparently even in the world. So, Pennsylvania really does have something that Senator Scarnati talked about to be very proud of, and it's something that we created, which is makes Pennsylvania a leader. While I'm just talking about, I mentioned before the interest that was in this particular hearing. I'll just, for the record, run down this list of entities that have submitted testimony. The County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, Bradford County Commissioners, the Wyoming County Commissioners, Butler County Commissioners, Sullivan County Commissioners, Clinton County Commissioners, the Wyoming County Conservation District, Borough of Montoursville, Spring Hill Township, Wyalusing Township, Pennsylvania Housing Alliance, the Growing Greener Coalition, and the Natural Lands Trust. Pretty significant group of entities or organizations that have an interest in what's going on here today. I really don't have any questions. I appreciate all of your testimony. Senator Hutchinson.
Just briefly, it's probably not a question, but more of a statement. There are those of us, myself, very strongly, and I think many of my colleagues who believe that the development of this industry has been a godsend for Pennsylvania as an industry, and the economic activity and the ability to have prosperity in Pennsylvania, and that's been very important, and we want that to continue. I think that the particular points from this panel is a chance for the people of Pennsylvania to hear that not only are the large, sexy projects that big municipalities can do able to happen, we're able to have road graders. I mean, that sounds like a basic thing to TV land maybe, but to these small townships that don't, the first time you're able to do that in 34 years, I mean, that's a significant thing, and it means so much to these small communities. A cinder shed, I mean, who brags about a cinder shed, but if it's needed and this is a way to make it happen, it's a wonderful thing. So I did want one comment about Elam, an important point that you made that is maybe getting lost in the shuffle, but that's the fact that under the impact fee as it's constructed today, with a healthy industry, that amount will grow. I think, and I don't know all the details, but my understanding is that the governor's proposal would say, you get $200 million this year, that's what you'll get next year, and it's not going to grow, and that is wrong. So that's a key point that we have to think about as we go forward. But thank you, gentlemen, for bringing your testimony today, your great examples that really show where the rubber meets the road. And thank you for sharing that with us today. Thank you.
Sorry, you D-check.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm born and raised in a rural township in northeastern Pennsylvania. Still live there, raising my family. My father is a township supervisor, was a roadmaster in the 1980s. So I may be the only one on the panel that's actually been in a cinder shed. It is a big deal. Every scoop of cinders that went out of the shed and into the truck, my father let me know that was going to protect the people we care about in this community, keep them safe. And my father's inspiration as a township official is a reason I'm here today in the General Assembly. So thank you for your service as a local township official. Very important to Pennsylvania. My concern, however, in the history of Plymouth Township where I live, over the last few decades, serious flooding from Agnes in 72 onward to the September floods of 2011 have really decimated the community. We've probably lost over 100 homes in a small rural township. You, Mr. Fry, can appreciate what that does to the budget, the impact and the loss of that tax base. In addition, we have thousands of acres of game lands in state forest lands, which not available for development. We appreciate them and the pristine nature that they add to our community. But what I'm concerned about, and let me say up front, I don't think that you're going to get any disagreement from me or from Governor Wolf that we should not hold harmless the impact dollars under Act 13, that we need to continue to drive those dollars out. I don't think that's an issue. I think it's important, and I applaud Senator Yaw and Senator Hutchinson for hosting this meeting so that we have input as we begin the discussion today on the next state budget. But what I'm concerned about under Act 13 was that we have a fragmented economic development policy, creating a have and have-nots. And while Plymouth Township sits at the foothills of the Marcellus Shale play, we still have a tremendous impact as trucks come down State Route 118, Route 29, and Route 11, but yet they're not part of the Act 13 structure. Getting to a point, and I want to highlight, I think it was a very important point that you made, that your township it has no market for natural gas. 900 in population, you don't have the pipes going out. I support Senator Yaw's bill to try to build out that market. The reason that we have issues right now in the natural gas industry, we have tremendous supply and demand is diminished and the price point has diminished. I would like to see a comprehensive economic development policy. That can't be funded through a fragmented 67 county tax policy currently under Act 13. We are seeing major pipeline development through Luzerne and Carbon County, development that could revitalize our manufacturing industry, revitalize our industrial parks, get cheap natural gas to our homeowners. I think over 45,000 homeowners in Luzerne County added natural gas. We need to continue to drive that market. So while I'll reiterate, I'm in favor of keeping the Act 13 impact dollars at the local level, as as has been indicated to me by Governor Wolf, that he too wants to hold that harmless. We need to look at a more comprehensive policy. There's no denying we lag behind the rest of the nation in job growth. And I think there's a reason for that. Over the last 4 years, we really haven't had a comprehensive energy policy. We haven't had a comprehensive economic development policy. Here's an opportunity to hold harmless the good work that you're doing in your township and counties are doing in the drilling counties across Pennsylvania. But now make an additional investment in the economic development, the build out of the infrastructure of natural gas, so Pennsylvania can take advantage of this natural resource, not just in drilling counties, but in all 67 counties, so that we can jump that number from 50th in job growth to number one in terms of having the best corporate tax policy, the best energy policy, the cheapest energy, and the best workforce in the world. Pennsylvania can transform its economy, but I think we need not a fragmented policy that's reflected under Act 13, but a comprehensive policy that hopefully will be unveiled today when the governor gives his budget address. Thank you.
Senator Ward.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. And Senator Udicek, I'm a former supervisor, and I have been in a cinder shed. But I just wanted to make a comment about when you were talking about what they do extra, the companies in the communities. I have seen that time and again in the county I represent. They go above and beyond what is necessary, and that will all stop when we increase taxes. That will definitely all stop. And one of the issues that the industry, I think, lacks in is getting their message out about what they already paid that helps the whole state of Pennsylvania. They pay a lot of taxes. It's not as though they have a free ride, and if we don't, without a separate tax, they're not paying their fair share. They're paying a lot of money into our state that helps us economically. And, you know, we do have counties that are fortunate enough to have the shale play in them and some that don't. But, you know, we can say the same thing for those that have casinos and that are getting a lot of money from those, and some of us are not. So I would really like to just see a broader message instead of just saying severance tax. What is our broader message on the tax of what this already is doing for Pennsylvania and how much money they've already are putting into the coffers here in Harrisburg? And thank you very much for being here today. I enjoyed your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Bartolotta.
Again, thank you so very much for taking the time to come in and give your testimony. It's really great to see so many great voices here. Mr. Herr, I did read your words, and I really appreciate what you said in the last paragraph, especially, which is that there is the impact fee does signal a new day in Pennsylvania. You're very right about that. And it also turns us away from the past where natural resource booms destroyed those communities with no safeguards. A lot of people who are not affected directly by the impact of drilling, imagine that industry doing to our communities what coal did very, very, very long time ago. We have the safeguards of the impact fee. And again, they are going above and beyond. So many communities, like you said, are able to not just beautify with trails and parks and playgrounds and things that really benefit their community and make it more of a family-friendly community. Just the emergency services that you're able to provide your communities that you've never seen before. I'm from District 46, which literally is the heart and soul of Marcellus Shale districts, all of Greene County, most of Washington County, and a bit of Beaver County. The impact there is tremendous, more so than any other area in the Commonwealth. And I've talked to dozens of township supervisors and municipal leaders over the last couple of years. Some of the things that they've been able to do down in Greene County, buying ambulances, new fire trucks. Some of these fire trucks were on their last legs. A ladder truck that one community shares with 3 others. They're also planning on putting in a landing pad for a life flight helicopter behind their municipal building. Right now they're using the football field, and sometimes they can't because it's so wet that the life flight helicopter will sink. And before they even use that, they have to call the fire department and have someone come out and clear the area and make sure there's no debris around. That's incredibly valuable time that is wasted when there's someone in need of a life flight. I mean, lives can be saved just because of implementation like this. And the Jaws of Life, another municipal township, the Jaws of Life, only ones in 100-mile radius, and they loan those out to other municipalities. So it's vital for communities that would never otherwise have any of these benefits that we enjoy in our cities. So I really thank you so very much for coming in and giving your testimony. Thanks so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate your testimony here this morning.
Thank you.
Okay. The next panel involves economic development, and we have Tony Ventello from the Progress Authority in Bradford County, and Jason Ragone, the Executive Director of the Westmoreland County Industrial Development Corporation.
Billions in investment and taxes paid, and 245,000 Pennsylvania jobs impacted. Along with this shale gas development comes with substantial impacts. Our efforts to educate ourselves on economic and community impacts of shale gas development have taken us to rural areas of Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Alberta, Canada, and most recently Arkansas to critically understand the similarities, but most importantly, the differences in shale gas development and their impacts in northern Pennsylvania. Having lived and worked in the heart of the Marcellus Shale Formation from its inception over the last 9 years, if someone asked me what the single greatest impact was from the Marcellus development, I'd say what has happened and in the time it happened in.
Mr. Ventello, is your mic on? Is the green light on?
It is now.
Okay.
You want me to start over? No, I'm like it. No. Okay. What happened, it results
So Act 13, as rural counties and local resources are to manage this great natural resource and its benefits did not exist. Act 13 has provided funds to both Bradford and Susquehanna counties that have dealt directly with immediate and future impacts to our local governments and communities. Act 13 empowers local decision-making. It allows county and local governments to maximize its use to serve its greatest needs. We are aware of the tremendous economic impact of natural gas exploration through direct shale gas investment, purchasing of local services, goods, and substantial payment of taxes to our federal, state, and local governments. We have experienced tax-based expansion with new commercial and residential buildings. Our counties have 2 new hospitals improving health care delivery and experiencing their 24/7 economic impacts. Taxable income has risen 19%. Farming remains the strongest in the core Marcellus counties, along with continued investment in our diversified local manufacturing sector. However, existing tax levies are used to fund traditional state, educational, and governmental services. Act 13 has, for the first time in Pennsylvania, allowed for the bolstering of emergency services and public safety, which is traditionally volunteer-based, infrastructure improvements along with critical planning and investment for housing, industrial park development, and most recently, an infrastructure bank, an investment loan, and grant programs which target the greatest needs to maximize impact of critical issues have been developed. Act 13 has provided our counties, local municipalities, and communities with funds to augment specific programs and efforts not reached with existing taxes and permitting fees traditionally leveled by governments. Additionally, statewide environmental and housing programs have been funded through our County Conservation District, Department of Community and Natural Resources, and Pennsylvania Housing Financing Agency, continuing investment in Pennsylvania communities. Our legislators must be commended for their leadership provided with the passage of Act 13, which has been the most useful resource to maintain and improve our communities for all the impacts of shale gas drilling. Act 13 is providing for the foundation to strengthen our rural counties and prepare for additional investment. While we all have experienced a historical cycling of the industry with production and demand, one thing is constant: our need to better utilize the resources apparent to benefiting both private and public demand for revenue. As a statewide initiative, the financial and economic future of Pennsylvania is to focus on the value-added utilization of this Marcellus resource. We're providing incentives for CNG, compressed natural gas, LNG, liquefied natural gas, GTL, gas to liquids, electrical power generation, improved local distribution so all Pennsylvanians can benefit, feedstock for our industry and export. Will balance the economics of pricing, drilling activity, and utilization. We must add value before it leaves the Commonwealth in order to capitalize on investment and job creation and retention. Our future lies with the vertical integration of this resource and Act 13 for the development of the infrastructure and community services to build capacity to promote further shale gas utilization and development. Pennsylvania can be the nation's leader in energy development, and continued investment via Act 13 can make it happen. I thank the Environmental Resource and local government committees for their opportunity to provide this testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Ragon.
Good morning. First, I'd like to, my speaker's on, right? I see the green light.
There's a green light on.
Let's start over.
The green light's important.
First of all, I'd just like to mention that I'm battling through a little bit of a cold here, so if I have to stop, I apologize for that. Senator Yaw, Senator Hutchinson, and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to present testimony before the Senate Environmental Resources and Energy Committee and Local Government Committee. My name is Jason Rigoni. I serve as the Executive Director for the Westmoreland County Industrial Development Corporation. I also serve as the Director of the county's Department of Planning and Community Development. Here today to provide an overview of the economic development impact and benefits of Act 13, also known as the Marcellus Shale Impact Fee. Because I serve as both the Executive Director of the IDC and as the Director of the Department of Planning and Development, I have the unique opportunity and position.
Excuse me, believe it or not, we got a message saying the mic's not on. Is that, maybe it's not close enough, or if the green, or maybe try the other mic, maybe? I'm sorry.
It did look like it was on.
There,
It's louder. I'm not starting over. I'm assuming I'm not starting over as well. All right, I have the unique position of observing and at times utilizing the impact fee and benefiting Westmoreland County. The Industrial Development Corporation, created in 1983 by the then County Board of Commissioners, provides economic development services with a focus on industrial park development and redevelopment of blighted and environmental impacted brownfield sites. Today, we have 17 industrial parks that house over 140 companies that employ over 9,000 and generate $5 million in taxes to support vital local school and county services. With shale gas drilling active in the county since 2008, Westmoreland and 67 municipalities are eligible to receive direct funding disbursements outlined and described in Act 13. With the passing of Act 13, the Westmoreland County Board of Commissioners directed a county-wide analysis and sought input for potential use of the anticipated impact fee. The County Department of Planning and Community Development, under my direction, gathered input from municipal and public officials and the general public through several means, including electronic surveying, town hall meetings, and individualized meetings. The analysis and information gathered took place over a 3-month period. The results of the input gathering exercise were rather precise, and utilization focused on roads and bridges, public safety, environmental protection, and the improvement of stormwater, stormwater, and sewer systems. Since its inception, Westmoreland County has received approximately $6.6 million directly, with $4 million in discretionary funding, $1.6 million in the restricted bridge funding, and a nearly $1 million in greenway, open space, and recreation funding. Westmoreland County has directed its funding to emergency preparedness with the upgrade of the communication systems for its 911 system, to our local conservation district and recycling operations, farmland preservation, as well as providing funding to the Westmoreland Land Trust. This funding was utilized to match other funding sources to purchase high-priority properties within an area the county designated as a development triangle, with a land trust mission to conserve and steward lands with water of Westmoreland County that harbors ecological, scenic, and recreational qualities to offer a healthier, more sustainable future for all. The willingness to purchase and reserve key properties, preserving the undeveloped nature in areas seeing high demand for development, ultimately creates a balance that benefits the quality of life for residents. Lastly, the impact fee is not utilized directly for capital improvement projects, but rather to act as revenue source for existing operational expenses, keeping property taxes and fees from rising and municipal county government services stable, and ultimately providing a lower cost of doing business and having an indirect economic benefit. Westmoreland, as a direct recipient of impact fees, receives restricted highway allocation to be utilized for the replacement and repair of local county bridges. The need to continually invest resources into and maintaining a robust road and bridge infrastructure has an intrinsic value to the businesses in the community and thus the overall economy. Westmoreland, having a higher than average manufacturing community, relies heavily on the strength of our transportation system to be able to move goods and commerce to and from facilities. Restricted highway allocation has been utilized to replace several key bridges, with one in particular located in Penn Township along Harrison City Export Road being replaced in 2014. The significance of this bridge is that Harrison City Export Road is the only road between State Route 130 and U.S. Route 22 in Westmoreland County that does not contain the weight restrictions at this point since the bridge has been replaced. One of the county's largest manufacturing companies in terms of employment, Elliott Company, manufactures extremely large products such as oil and gas fueled compressor systems and is located within several miles of the newly replaced bridge. The need to have a strong local, when their product is shipped, it requires permitting because of the weight. You're talking about 200 million tons at times. I mean, you're talking about large products. Typically, these facilities are built on coast so they can take them out via ship. We are fortunate enough to have this facility located in the heart of Westmoreland County. The need to have a strong local road system allows Elliott to access larger state highway system, and has a direct and significant impact to the economy, in particular to the manufacturing sector. The impact fee, having a significant amount dedicated to the Marcellus Shale Legacy Fund and to further to individual programs providing counties and municipalities across the Commonwealth the ability to submit applications for competitive programs and secure essential funds for numerous uses. One particular program, the Greenways Trails and Recreation Program, administered by the CFA, Commonwealth Financing Authority, and managed by the Department of Community and Economic Development, was accessed by our county departments of Parks and Recreation to finish the third phase of the Twin Lake Parks project. This park, being centrally located in the county, having 2 large lakes and a 2.5-mile walking trail, had a final phase of development to include a deck hockey facility and amphitheater seating. $200,000 was approved by the CFA in a competitive program in 2014 to assist with this phase and funding being allocated again by the Marcel Shell Legacy Fund. Improvements to our recreational facilities has an indirect but a very significant impact in terms of economic development. Recreational assets create a high level of quality of life, which in turn help retain and attract residents. With populations trending towards an older population and a younger generation's willingness to be mobile in making long-term residential decisions based on quality of life rather than just the financial considerations, the need to retain and attract a new workforce is essential to maintaining and improving our economy. Impact fee disbursements to the counties and municipalities has the ability to utilize for road and infrastructure development. An organization like the Industrial Development Corporation has developed thousands of acres of industrial parks, including extensions of roadways and utilities as the primary development activity. The impact fee can be used as an essential funding tool to support this element. With the availability of traditional funding sources for greenfield business parks, such as the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program, Business in Our Sites Program, PennWorks, etc., either decreasing or unpredictable in terms of availability, new and innovative revenue sources, or such as the impact fee, are imperative. Additionally, if approved for most traditional state and federal development funding programs, most require a financial local match. The impact fee can be utilized to addressing those matching requirements and increases in importance and is compounded for many counties and municipalities that do not have access to gaming funds and a local share account. With 12 counties having access to LSAs and potentially millions of dollars of revenue that can be utilized for economic and community development projects or utilized as match, leveraging other state funding programs, places most counties within the Commonwealth at a competitive disadvantage. Westmoreland County, with casinos located in counties on 3 borders, is no stranger to this dynamic. The impact fee has impacted economic development efforts in Westmoreland County both directly and indirectly. If the opportunity arises to allow local municipalities and counties to receive additional percentage of the impact fee directly, that would open additional opportunities to invest those dollars on local priorities. Modifying the formula to further spread the limited funding statewide would only place counties like Westmoreland at a further competitive disadvantage. Thank you for your excuse me. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present my testimony on this much-needed program, and I'd be happy to take any questions. And I apologize for having to struggle through this today.
No problem. I appreciate and thank both of you for your testimony. Mr. Ventella, there's something that you mentioned which we've heard a lot today about the benefits, the businesses, the economics of the gas industry. But you mentioned something in your testimony about farming remaining the strongest in the core Marcel counties. I think that's very interesting.
Yes, one of the things that we fought was the people's statement with regards to the industrialization of a rural area. I think it's been quite the contrary. I think it's kept land in large parcels, which is conducive to agriculture. It's also provided resources, funding. And one farmer had indicated to me that the farm's actually working for me now a little bit and helps him with buying new equipment and upgrading some things. So it has not had a negative effect on the agricultural industry as far as we can see. And we researched that heavily. And working with the Ag Extension, it's also had that result. But again, it's kept the rural atmosphere intact.
I don't think that anybody up here has any questions, and that's not to mean that your testimony or your comments have not been important. I think that it's one of the things is I think we understand. We've gotten a consistent message here today, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The final panel is Conservation Districts, and we have Jim Shaner, the Executive Director of Beaver County Conservation District, and Carl Brown, the Executive Secretary of the State Conservation Commission. Morning, gentlemen. Mr. Shaner, I guess you're up.
Is the mic on?
I don't know. We've had an awful time with getting
There we go.
the mic on today.
Chairman Yaw, Chairman Hutchinson, and all the distinguished senators of both committees. Thank you for providing the Beaver County Conservation District with the opportunity to discuss the many benefits of Act 13. My name is Jim Shaner, and I am the Executive Director for the district. To be concise, the conservation districts work locally to implement the Chapter 102 Erosion and Sediment Control Program on behalf of the Department of Environmental Protection, and to implement Act 38, which provides the agricultural community with technical support and assistance in writing nutrient management plans. The overall benefit of Act 13 to all the conservation districts is to provide a predictable, stable funding source. Conservation districts have historically received line item funding through the state budget via the Department of Agriculture and DEP to reimburse us for the work we do on behalf of the state. Over time, this funding has decreased and then stagnated. This is a major concern for districts because costs to properly run the districts have risen. There has been no increase for inflation, and conservation districts have been asked to implement more and more complicated permitting programs. In addition, the districts complete all work on a Chapter 102 program for the Department of Transportation at no charge. The lack of increase in the line items meant that they were not sufficiently reimbursing the districts for the work performed on behalf of the state, and the funding from Act 13 has helped to close this gap. In addition, this funding has helped the districts to fill one or two top priorities, including helping the residents of our counties economically through the environment. This is why, after filling the gap left by the line items, the Beaver County Conservation District made it a priority to use Act 13 funds to benefit the citizens of Beaver County by creating 2 new programs and helping to fund one existing program that had depleted its source of funding. The first of these is our Agriculture Operations Assistance Program. This is a reimbursement mini-grant program that shares the farmer's cost for small farm conservation projects. These projects may include, but are not limited to, stream bank fencing, stream bank buffer zones, spring development, manure storage areas, stormwater management and control, and erosion and sediment controls. The sub-program also provides funding to assist the farmer in obtaining nutrient management plans, furthering compliance with the Pennsylvania Clean Streams Law. The overall goal of this program is to help offset the cost of implementing conservation practices related to manure and nutrient management, which means cleaner water for the citizens of Beaver County. Secondly, we created our Stream Bank Stabilization Assistance Program. This is a mini-grant program that helps homeowners to stabilize stream banks located on their property. This is a matching grant which requires the homeowners to provide in-kind services such as equipment, manpower, and some materials if available. Most of these projects use natural materials such as log vein structures, root wad placement, large stones that are located on their property, and native plantings to stabilize the stream banks. Our district provides the technical expertise and a balance of materials to complete these projects. The goal of this program is to help protect water quality in Beaver County watersheds. It is available to nonprofits and individuals who have first or second order streams on their property and are interested in stream bank stabilization, habitat improvement, establishing buffer zones, and natural stream restoration to mitigate erosion and sedimentation. Thirdly, we're using Act 13 to help fund our Arboretum program. This program includes a nature trail and picnic shelter, along with free educational programming coordinated by our environmental educator. Educational programs are put on once a month, spring through fall, with topics like maple syrup production, spring wildflowers, butterfly and moth habitat, amphibian and reptiles, wild mushroom walk and identification. Act 13 funds are used to obtain program presenters and cover trail maintenance costs. Distinguished members of the committee, thank you again for your leadership on this issue. The Beaver County Conservation District and all the state's 66 conservation districts have greatly benefited from Act 13, and a result the residents of our great Commonwealth have benefited as well. If we lost this funding, it would be a major blow to the districts, the economy, and the environment of Pennsylvania. Again, I thank you and look forward to your questions, and I also want to thank Senator Vogel for his continued support for the Beaver County Conservation District.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Brown.
Good morning, Chairman Yaw, Chairman Hutchinson, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm between you and lunch and the budget address, so I'll try to keep it short. I did give you written comments. I will not go through all those verbatim. I just want to touch on a number of things. My name is Carl Brown. I'm the Executive Secretary of the State Conservation Commission. Our commission is a departmental administrative commission that has concurrent authorities both in PDA and DEP. Our core function is to work cooperatively with county governments, state governments, federal agencies, landowners, farmers, and others to implement soil and water conservation programs. Our primary partners are the county conservation districts. We work closely with them, and by law we have a double responsibility to both support and provide oversight to the districts. So I thank you for the opportunity to present today. We've heard in the agenda the importance to the counties, to the townships, to the industrial development, to a whole host of different entities. And I would say that the importance of the funding from Act 13 are equally important to the county conservation districts. Districts over the years have developed a grassroots connection to their communities, to the farmers that they serve, to the townships, to the boroughs and others that they serve and work with. They deliver conservation and natural resource services and more importantly, deliver technical assistance to these individuals and organizations, many of the same clients and constituents that you serve. Our districts are the first line of defense for natural resource issues. There are boots on the ground. We heard Senator Scarnati talking about this is kind of an issue where it's the confluence of the Pennsylvania's envied for the water that we have, the jobs that we have, for the energy that we have, for the food that we have. Our county conservation districts are in the middle of all those issues. They provide services, they provide support to all those entities, whether they're individuals or local governments, that are vitally important to help our farmers keep healthy lands and healthy soils, to help our townships with dirt and gravel roads, to help with acid mine drainage and a host of other natural resource issues. So much of the work of the county conservation districts, unfortunately over time, has often been overlooked because they work behind the scenes, they work in partnership. But the members of this committee historically, especially over the last 10 years, have worked hard to maintain funding for districts both through line items for DEP and PDA and importantly through Act 13 and including them there. So we thank you for that support through some very difficult times. But that funding through Act 13, that baseline of funding that is provided to districts is very important. It provides stability, it provides predictability, and that's very important to districts. I could bore you by going through the allocations of how this funding goes out. I provided that to you in writing. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer that. I would say that the line items, the money goes out in two pieces, one through the PUC, which is block grant, one portion through the commission. Our commission looks at two important aspects. One is the technical capacity and the managerial capacity of the districts. We take a portion of this funding and supplement the traditional line items to allow those districts to maintain technical capacity and managerial capacity. We take a second portion of it and drive it out to the districts that have impacts and allow them to work with their communities on issues and concerns that you've heard a lot about today through those impacts. So we do take in consideration both the stability baseline funding for the districts, supplementing resources that have already been provided through the line items, but more importantly, the impacted counties. And we did give you some information on a number of different counties. You can take a look at that. One is Lycoming County, and if you take a look at the information, you'll see the district has prioritized putting this money back into the county to those who have been impacted. They've helped farmers with stream bank fencing. They've helped stabilize animal walkways, runoff controls, traditional agricultural BMPs that they have prioritized to work with county farmers and with county landowners. They've helped the County Fair Association to improve their animal washwater collection area and manure storage facilities. They've worked on stream habitat restoration, and you can go through and read some of the things they've done there. They've offered scholarships to Envirothon winners, worked on interpretive trails, and a host of other things. In Western Pennsylvania, Westmoreland District, an outstanding district in Western Pennsylvania, has developed what they call a river to ridge watershed effort in the McGee Run watershed, a comprehensive effort where they've taken Act 13 money and they used it both in staff capacity and in match capacity to leverage a Commonwealth Financing Agency grant to do what they would term as one of the most ambitious watershed-wide conservation efforts that that district has undertaken. So they're using this money not only to supplement staff capacity and to drive it back into the county, but they're using it to leverage other money to be able to do some pretty significant things. I've also provided to you today one page that was provided through the Tioga Conservation District, and you can read down through those, but similar things of providing money for education, providing money for the Envirothon, for schools, traditional acid mine drainage work that they have done in many counties, ag BMPs, capacity building within local entities. These are all things that these districts could not have done if, one, they didn't have stable and predictable funding to support staff and technical capacity, and two, for those that have impacts, to be able to use that money to be a reinvestment back into those communities, to do those things that are so vital that we've heard about today to those communities. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here. I thank you for your support of county conservation districts, for their funding, both the line items as well as the Act 13 money. And districts truly appreciate the opportunity to be able to be at the interface of these issues and to be a partner, to work with industry, to work with landowners, and to reinvest this money back into our natural environments, back into our students, and back into our communities. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
I'd just like to thank you, gentlemen. I think that you've put a pretty significant exclamation point on all of the testimony here today, and it really appears to me that we, through Act 13, have a law which has been very beneficial. I guess it sounds trite to say it works, and you've made it very clear that it works. I guess to editorialize a bit for myself, it's one of those questions, if it ain't broke, why are we going to fix it? But, you know, that's my own comment about it. Clearly, from all the testimony here today, it works, and it works very well. Senator Vogel.
Thank you. I, too, would just like to make a few comments. The hearings have been great this morning. Everyone has testified, to commissioners, supervisors, everyone, conservationists, people have proven over and over again the benefits of Act 13 and how it is working in our communities. And I think one of the bigger picture things that was sort of wasn't said but needs to be said is all these implement plans for doing best management practices are helping the Chesapeake Bay as well. I mean, the Chesapeake Bay watershed, it covers almost half the state of Pennsylvania, and all these conservation programs, best management practices we're doing, and ultimately will come down to helping the Chesapeake Bay situation as well. And although Beaver County is just in the beginning stages of drilling, we don't have a lot of wells drilled there right now, but the Act 13 money is helping, and the new programs we have started here in Beaver County as well are a fact. We got the money from Act 13 to start these programs, and they're going to eventually help farmers and landowners as well in Beaver County and the Ohio River watershed, which is going to be an issue someday, I'm sure, in the future. So I want to thank you all for your work, and Mr. Brown, you do a very good job as a statewide conservation districts, and we know this Act 13 money is a gap in the funding that we've had an issue we've been wrestling with for the last few years in the budget, and hopefully it is filling the gap we've heard that we need to do to provide you with the funds you do need to do the job you do, and hopefully we can continue to do this in the future, and it will continue to benefit the citizens of Pennsylvania. So thank you, everyone, very much.
Also, very quickly, thank you both for your testimony. You know, one of the important parts, I believe, of this hearing today, not only we've heard some very thoughtful and well uses of Act 13 money across the state. It also reminds us, those of us in the panel, we deal with lots of bills and lots of things, and sometimes we forget all the details. You've pointed out again, I had forgotten about the funding source for conservation districts. That's a big part of this, and I appreciate hearing that again and reminding us how important it is that if we want that stable funding source to continue, we have to have a robust energy industry, and if the industry goes away or diminishes, those kind of funds they're in jeopardy. The other thing that you mentioned, and it was pointed out by earlier testimony also, the fact that this is a local funding source. It can be used for matches for bigger that's your local match to be able to get this much money for projects, and that's key also. When you start having a statewide tax of whatever sort, it's no longer a local match, and therefore the money is not going to spread as far. So those are both key things that I was reminded of today. I appreciate the work you do and the fact that we've been able to do so many good things because of Act 13. So thank you for coming today and sharing.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to wrap up this hearing. I'd like to thank Senator Hutchinson and his staff for helping with this hearing today. I think it was very, very beneficial. The entire presentation today will be available on my website, so that if you want to pick up anything that anyone said or follow up with any of the presenters. I'd also like to make a personal comment. I have an administrative assistant that helps me set up these hearings and work with, I know, Senator Hutchinson's staff, and prepares copies and does all the background work. And today happens to be her birthday. So, Patty Gilroy, happy birthday. With that, we will adjourn the hearing. Thank you.